Tất cả các anh chị thành viên và xin chào tất cả các anh chị thành viên và khách mời. Vâng, cũng giống như chị Liễu vừa nói đấy, thì xuất nhập khẩu thì giữa Việt Nam và Mỹ cũng như là từ Mỹ về Việt Nam của chúng ta luôn là một chủ đề được các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam tại Mỹ cũng như là doanh nghiệp Việt Nam ở Việt Nam luôn rất là quan tâm, và nó là cái từ khóa rất là hot khi mà để nói về vấn đề mà tại xúc tiến thương mại. Vâng, đặc biệt là đối với BBI Global của chúng ta thì chúng ta luôn luôn canh cánh với cái câu hỏi là làm sao để mà hỗ trợ được các sản phẩm made in Việt Nam được đàng hoàng mà xuất hiện được trên những cái kệ hàng ở các siêu thị cũng như đại siêu thị của các nhà phân phối lớn tại Mỹ. Chính vì vậy mà ngày hôm nay chúng tôi cũng mời đến đây một cái khách mời, đó là ông Chuck Lopez, ông là giám đốc phụ trách khu vực Đông Nam Á của Quỹ giảm thiểu rủi ro toàn cầu. Vâng, và ông đã từng sinh sống ở Việt Nam đến 14 năm. Vâng, cho nên chính vì vậy mà ông rất là hiểu con người cũng như văn hóa cũng như các sản phẩm dịch vụ của Việt Nam và làm thế nào mà để thành công được khi mà promote những cái sản phẩm đó sang Mỹ. Và ông đã từng tham gia và tư vấn những cái dự án xuất nhập khẩu lên tới 2 tỷ đô la. Vâng, chính vì vậy mà ông có 35 kinh nghiệm xây dựng các mối quan hệ trong lĩnh vực tài chính kinh doanh, tập trung vào bán hàng này, bảo hiểm và tư vấn đầu tư nữa. Đấy, chính vì vậy ngày hôm nay chúng tôi muốn mời đến đây ông để ông sẽ có một cái bài thuyết trình trong vòng khoảng từ 25 phút. Sau đó là chúng ta sẽ có khoảng 10 phút để có thể có những câu hỏi để cho ông ấy giải đáp. Vâng, please welcome Mr. Chuck Lopez. Come here with us. Yeah. Yes.
Hello, everybody, and good morning. I'll share my screen from here. Let's see. So everybody's doing okay today?
Yes,
we've got.
Okay, very good. All right. So today, so I've been part of this, our foundation, and in our foundation for the past, I don't know, since like 2015, we started this. And then I wanted to thank my alumni sister over there, Tina Murphy, for inviting me to do this. And I'm glad I can talk to you folks here at BVI. So really today, I just want to go through some basic stuff as far as looking at the opportunities to fill the container both ways, right? It's a mindset of what I've learned over time and doing business in both sides as far as the US and in Vietnam, but in other areas here around the Pacific Basin. And figuring out when we're talking exporting, because we'll be talking exporting today, and recently just finishing up some partnerships that we did in the CNMI, the Marianas, around Guam, Saipan, and we're looking at exporting in three different levels, whether it was a person that was a new entrepreneur trying to export off their island, or they were expanding, they had some existing product and services already, or experienced exporters that were trying to up their game and really go even more global. And so this is just an example of the collaboration that companies can do. So when I wanted to get some feedback and kind of listen to some of the things that you folks were thinking about, or some things that you've had trouble with, and so I can try to give some ideas around this. And one of them was highly competitive markets, and whether you're in a highly competitive market in the US, there's highly competitive markets everywhere. And one of the ways that you work around that, or you're going to have to find some way to innovate, whether it's a process or technology, to be able to find that niche or that little thing that you can do a little bit better. But it's also part of a mindset saying, well, everybody always wants to compete for that same slice of the pie, but the mindset is there's more than that pie is the opportunity. So you have to have a mindset of, I'm going to make the pie bigger, or I'm not going to do your pie, I'm going to make my own pie, right? Where your strategy is going to be guiding the structure of your environment versus the business environment telling you what your strategy needs to be. So there's a mindset here of just creating this bigger pie. Rules, yes, rules and regulation always adds cost, but there's ways that we can get around it. And one of the biggest ones are trade agreements. If you've got free trade acts, and just if you're in America, you don't necessarily you don't necessarily just have to think Vietnam. Maybe you need to think bigger than that, and Vietnam is a portion of that. So you get to some of the new agreements here in the ASEAN side, or you get part of the US, Canada, Mexico trade agreement. Yeah, you smack us, actually what we call it. Partnerships where you can share costs around the regulatory side, or you get into programs where there's matching funds from say an Exim Bank or other agencies in the US government that can kind of share those costs or help you through those regulatory type situations, but at very low cost or no cost, right? And then one of the biggest things that I heard as well was culture. And in business, what we find, because we in our foundation we focus a lot on several types of risk, and it always seems to come up that people always kind of forget about looking at cultural risk or political risk or some other particular technology risks. But culture is a big one. And doing business in America, if you're coming outside, coming from out, you're already used to a diverse culture of business people, because the US is so culturally diverse. One thing, being in Hawaii, we use that as a leverage, because in Hawaii we're such a small island, 1.2 million people on Oahu, but the number of cultures in Hawaii is it's incredible. So it gives us leverage where we want to, or if we want to go to Japan, or we want to go to Vietnam or the Philippines or wherever. So there are ways that you can help your partner understand those cultural differences in the US. Oops, there we go. All right. When you're an exporter, there's so many things that you got to think of. You got to go through all these steps in some way, shape, or form. But one of the things that we find is, don't worry if you can't do them all, right? You get rid of, outsource the ones that you don't think you're going to be good at, and get the help with those trusted partners that can facilitate these different areas for you, because there's tons of businesses out there that can do a lot of this. One of the things that we find to help differentiate, going back to the competitive marketplace or the competitive industry, is the last bullet point you see there right at the bottom: customer service models. One of the biggest things is always the customer experience, but that customer service model can create what we call a barrier to entry. It can keep competition out because you treat your customers better than somebody else. And when you're able to, it's not cheap to put in a very, very robust customer service model, but it's one of the ways from a business standpoint that you're able to compete better, because people want good service. So when you're looking at the different things that you want to outsource, you could probably get through most of this by outsourcing these things to somebody else, but then concentrate on your customer service model. For some of you that are doing the retail sales, nearly 5 trillion in estimated global sales, and more than half are doing outside their domestic market. So if you're coming out of the US, whether it's to Vietnam or like I said, other areas, then you're already with the majority of businesses that are going, outside of their own domestic market. The interesting thing, here's the last one there, where most don't meet those expectations of a good experience. So that goes back to that customer service model. Design your customer service model so that the feedback that you're getting from your customers are going to be good experience. And we see that whether the market was we've done some in Korea and Japan, and comparing that to other areas, then it's a metric that seems to come up quite a lot. There's a huge expectation for your customers to have a good experience. And so that's why the customer service model, is very, very important. All right. One of the companies that helped a while back was a cosmetic company. So it was a good friend of mine. He wanted to go do everything online, do all e-commerce. And he started, it was based out of Ho Chi Minh City. And he started to build his cosmetic company purely online, just selling 3 products, just focusing on just 3 products, targeting women customers, and inputting an extremely good customer service model to be able to, one, have the customer have that experience, but also training the staff so everybody is sharing the same values, right? And that there's culture, not just in the markets you're going, but the culture in your own company is just as important. After expanding throughout Vietnam, then he decided he wanted to do business in the US. And so what he did, he structured the company. He got his economies of scale first, being able to reduce, of course, all the product price points through the sales through the Vietnamese market. But then when he wanted to expand into the US, what he did, he kept the call center in Ho Chi Minh City, out in District 2, out in Thao Dien. And then his customers were coming from places where you guys live. Their customers were all the Vietnamese populations, whether it was Houston, whether it's the West Coast. And he, in a matter of 18 months, he took online sales on just 3 products from about 250,000 in the first few months to almost 3 million in just 18 months. And then from there, it grew to white labeling products. So now he's white labeling products in the US, bringing those back to the Vietnamese market. So there's ways that you can utilize, the labor where the labor is going to, be cost effective for you. So that's just a quick little case study there. The mindset that we look at is we basically have two things you got to remember in business. We're there to serve customers, right? We've got to serve our customers. We've got to serve our clients. And when we do that, new markets are going to open because, again, you're making that pie bigger. And of course, we want to make a profit. So economic value, you have to understand the perception. What are people willing to pay for something? It's not you're just buying a phone for $1,200. No, it's much more than that. It's the perception of, for example, the phone giving me the freedom to do business anywhere I want to be. I don't have to be in 4 walls. So it wasn't that, I'm willing to pay, $1,200 for something that's going to make my life better, but I'm not going to pay $1,200 for a phone. So you have to create this economic value, this perceived value of what people will pay for your services. One of the things that we teach, especially for beginners or people entering the market, or entering into the business, is just basics. Concentrating on 6 things. Your leadership is how you're going to get the business to where it is that you want to be going, right? We use the airplane for this. And we use the cockpit as the leadership, making sure you're looking at metrics, just real basic metrics, but especially the activity. What is the activity that you're doing that's going to come back and create revenue, right? We look at the engines. Those are the sales and the marketing, and when you've got to be able to give more power to your engines so that you can keep the business moving forward. But we have our wings, where you have to have your products and services, and just think of your product services as light and strong. They've got to be profitable, but they also have to be in demand. So you've got to figure out where you're going to be able to compete and with what products. And I'll show you a way to do that in a bit. And then your cash flow. So your cash flow is kind of like what we'd say would be our fuel tanks. We've got to have the cash flow it doesn't matter how fast our engines are revving or where we're going. If we don't have the positive cash flow, we're gonna drop. And one of the things that we always see when a business isn't performing at where it should be performing is because of the overhead, the body of the plane. There's too much overhead. You have people that aren't producing at a productivity rate that they should be, or you have to have this big office when you really don't really need a big office. And one of the things that we see when the overhead is too high, the plane's going to drop. Doesn't matter how fast you go, doesn't matter if you don't have enough cash flow to float your overhead, you're going to drop. So a lot of times we just go back and we just focus on these 6 areas of the business is to create that mindset. When we talk about making the pie bigger, there's always opportunity somewhere. When you look at it from the buyer's point of view, who is your customer, or where or how do you want to compete? You can look from a buyer experience. This is part of Blue Ocean, of how people buy things, right? Whether it's, if we look on the left side, customer productivity, productivity and simplicity, how effective can they be with the product, or how simple do you make it, and is it convenient to buy? Am I reducing financial risk, health risk, or like is other types of risk as far as cultural risk, etc.? Do you give them a good experience, fun, and image? And of course, now there's a lot about sustainability for the environmental friendliness, but then also how do you purchase it, how they deliver it, how they use it. And if you go in and you can kind of see where in your competitive environment that you know your main 2 or 3 competitors, you can see where people, if you identify where they are competing, then you find other areas where you're not going to be in that same competition with them, right? We're looking at what we call blue ocean to red ocean. So you can use this grid just to figure out where the competition is competing, and then make a little X or something. And then you can have all these other white spots that you can figure out, again, how to make your product differentiated or deliver it in such a way that, again, it makes your pie bigger, or it's helping you compete in a very competitive industry or competitive market. Another source where you can figure out, well, shit, I don't even know what to sell or what's buying. Well, there's this website, and it's called the Observatory of Economic Complexity. You can go to this thing, it's for free. And this is a chart of Vietnam's exports, and it breaks it down for every country. So when I'm talking about thinking bigger, okay, step by step, get things going between, your companies in the US and Vietnam first, but don't forget there's how many other 140 other countries you could go to. But this website's amazing because it goes in there and it tells you the things that are being exported out, so that if you're one of the Vietnamese companies, what's going out. Is there some other little area that you could take advantage of? And then you can see where the export markets are, as far as what the percentages are going to China or the US or South Korea. But there's also import information, so you can see what Vietnam is importing. So you're able to figure out, hey, can we collaborate here? Because I can see what the percentages and the areas and the industries of everything being imported versus exported. Collaboration. So you can go to this website. It's an amazing website, and the colors are just fabulous. Some of the programs that especially in the US, that what you can do, there's a lot of promotions, a lot of help around agriculture, especially getting it to value added ag products, which we've done a lot of work with companies. Financing, the different ways to use. I'll go through a couple models on the financing, or a couple of programs, sorry. And then opportunities, being a minority in the US, there's other agencies that you can go after and find their help. USDA and Foreign Agricultural Service, they specialize in moving product, right? Especially from US to Vietnam. And then what we had done, we'd worked with FAS up in Hanoi for a while, and really got to know the system of how products could be moved from US to Vietnam, but then create some sort of economic benefit in the Vietnamese market as well. So again, it's a win-win situation. But if you haven't ever tried to work with, or you haven't worked with foreign agricultural service, and you want to look at moving value-added agriculture products, they're the place to start with. They also have these regional trade groups, and they have regional trade groups. There's a West, there's a Southern, there's an Eastern, and then but the other one's the Midwest. And again, it's all about exporting the market. It's all about getting the products to export markets, right? And value-added food. And one of the things that the example for the West Coast is called Wusata. So one of the things that these, regardless of the region, what they do is they help fund. So this is going back to what I mentioned a bit ago about matching funds. So go to the government, getting part of these, being part of these associations. It doesn't cost anything, but there's free money there, right? You just go through the way to, their application process, and you've got matching, whether it's your first year, like it says there, anything after the first year. So as an example, here's the West Coast. So here's the Western Wusata group all the way down. And like I said, there's a West, there's a Southern, there's an Eastern, then there's a Midwest, North Midwest, I think it's called. So that's one of the places to go to the USDA. Exim Bank specializes in small business, and a lot of the programs through Exim Bank will protect against non-payment. So when you're shipping your products over to Vietnam, you can get, whether it be credit insurance or you need some sort of financing or borrowing or using accounts receivable, things of this nature, so that you're able to get the product over there without having the risk of non-payment. At the same time, Exim is starting to look at how to be able to help the foreign seller bringing their products to the US. And it's a very interesting collaboration. And again, find partners where you can work together. You're reducing you're going to be spreading the costs between the two groups, so you're reducing your costs. So there's ways to use these programs here. You're part of APEC, right? America, Vietnam, plus all these other countries that you see on the left side. These are all these trade agreements and these member organizations that you can utilize to move products and services, right? Sometimes we think export can only be something, I can touch, feel, or whatever, but no, service is also an export. One of the biggest exports that comes from America also is education, right? Education back and forth. It's an export, but you can be part of the APEC, or you can look at other organizations that strictly deal with exporting from the US, called the DEC, the District Export Council, right? Amazing company, or amazing agency. I know some company here that they do some work in Vietnam. They have some diamond cutting saws, right? I think he's out of South Carolina, but they do these diamond cutting saws for products, especially like medical products, for that manufacture in Vietnam, and have their factories out in Binh Duong. Another way to do it, you have to get known. How can you expand? How can you grow your pie? Why will people buy something from you if they don't know you? Get your brand out there. Get your story out there. People love a story. People will buy into the story. They don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. You have to create that story. And so, just an example, there's trade shows going on in Dubai. Well, they'll start in April, they'll go through June in Dubai, but find these trade shows. We've helped companies go to trade shows in Japan and in other different areas. So you have to get your story out there, because people will buy why you do what you do, not just what you do or what you sell. One of the case studies, especially that we worked with for value added ag products. So we're talking like avocado, sweet potato, breadfruit. What else? Anyway, And so it's gone from you work with the local farmer to create these pasta noodles. And this is a business on Oahu in Kaneohe. But what is done is we've been able to use different programs from the government once we did the value added piece, getting it into a food product, making very nice. So it's a small business. We get a check mark there. It's woman owned and a minority. So that's creating the awareness. We've created the story and the awareness, but because the owner, small business, women owned minority, funding has come in through different agencies with the US commercial services, right? And then the company's been built off core competencies. You have to understand what you're good at. What are you good at that you're better than somebody else in your own little universe? So as an example, if you're doing IT and you're on a list, I'll just take an example. You're going to do some sort of IT. Maybe you want to launch some sort of different social media platform. Well, you have to remember you're this big. It's not like you're going after a Facebook or an Instagram. So you got to look at what you're good at in your own little competitive environment. So being strong in these different areas has given this company a competitive advantage to become very well known. They were just voted number 5 small business on Yelp in the US just a month ago. But they were able to do that because they know that they do R&D very well, their IP, and then the people that work for them and a local supply chain. What that has led to is the exporting of the tech or the noodle themselves from Hawaii here to the Philippines, but also Dubai would like it, but Dubai would like to shape it into their own product. So, okay, well, we'll just, instead of making the noodle itself in Hawaii, we just make the mix. It'll stay dry. It's an export for the US. It goes to Dubai and then it's processed there into the noodle. Boom. Now Dubai has the made in Dubai stamp. So again, it's collaboration with the government to reduce the cost to get around some of those regulations, right? There's a lot of similarities also from the story there. In Vietnam, we're looking to bring some of that R&D tech to Vietnam, work with the local farmers, because a lot of the similar taste, a lot of the similar products that grow in Hawaii, you guys grow them in Vietnam, right? So again, collaboration, reduce costs. You don't have to worry about shipping, food stuff and deal with all that kind of regulatory crap, I will say, right? So again, there's opportunities. You just have to look at different ways to do it. What you look for and what we've built is a platform, and these platforms it's kind of like a dating platform. I like this, I'm looking for this, I'm interested in this. Then the other side, what are you looking for? What do you, and you're building these relationships off each other's needs, and you're able to collaborate with different types of companies. And one of the things that we've done, as you see on the left, whether it's a private business, some aviation, some maritime, Department of Defense, with these different countries. So the relationships that we've been able to build with these different countries have led to different types of export opportunities from Vietnam, either back to Hawaii or maybe Dubai, whether it's swai or shrimp or coffee, all done through a platform, right? Where again, where the business is being facilitated in between the two. You also have access to what we call the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. It's a huge US initiative right now, and all the partner countries that you can work with. So very easy to go US to Vietnam, but then you can start branching out into these other countries. Again, you have to think bigger. Another opportunity for you folks. In this Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, they're looking at digital, anything that gives clean energy, and supply chains. How can you fix the supply chain? We're doing some work right now trying to do seamless supply chains, utilizing Vietcombank to help finance exports to the US, finding relationships in Taiwan, Japan, all to do the same, and also here in the Philippines. So you have the opportunity to be involved with this type of framework. And then, of course, if you're going to sell anything, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it direct? Leverage technology, be that first one, manufacture whatever you're making straight to the consumer. Are you going to go through a retailer? Do you got to go through a middle person, a middleman, or whatever? You have to figure out how it is that you want to compete, right? And just some of the things that we do as far as who we are. And those are my two bosses. In fact, they're here with me right now. Whew. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. That's great.
Yep. Thank you, Jess. Xin mời tất cả các anh chị chúng ta có những cái câu hỏi gì đối với lại Chuck không? Về vấn đề là cụ thể hơn. Ví dụ như là các cái, tại vì lúc nãy tôi có nghe một số khách mời cũng như là nói là cũng đang có làm những cái công việc về xuất nhập khẩu đấy. Đấy, xuất hàng về Việt Nam hoặc là nhập khẩu hàng đi đấy.
What I just went through is usually like one whole day. It's like 6 hours of training that I just crammed in 28 minutes.
We have Scotty. Yeah. Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, this is Scotty in San Diego. I do have a lot
Hello.
of questions, but I'll go ahead and sidebar it. But very interesting topic. Thank you.
Okay, sure. You can email me if anybody has questions. Tina has my email, and she can.
Okay.
However you want to do it, doesn't matter to me. Or we can schedule time. Just let me know.
I do have a question.
Yeah, ready.
You had mentioned
Can
about
you hear
the.
We don't hear you, Leo. Okay.
Oh, you cannot hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Very good information. So you had mentioned about the Observatory of Economic Complexity. I love that. And I didn't realize that something like that is existing out there. So I think that that's going to be really good information for us to look at. How often do they update those reports?
It's updated depending on the country and how quickly the information comes back. Generally, everything is at least current every quarter. But there's some catch up right now. So some of the numbers end of 22, some of them end of 21, but the percentages really aren't that different. So it doesn't, if you look at something and it's a year old, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But prior to COVID, it was updated very regularly, regularly, at least every quarter, if not every month, depending on the country.
Right. Perfect.
Super
thank you
helpful.
so much. Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead and
then Gulf Shores, your hand.
Hi, Chuck. I found one interesting point in your presentation is about the mindset of doing a business. I believe that there's so much different mindsets of doing business in Vietnam and US. With your experience between Vietnam and US, you can point out some key difference of the mindset that could help us to speed it up and narrow down the gap.
The biggest thing that I come at, the thing I see most out of Vietnam is not confident. The companies that want to come to the US, they feel, and that was one of the things, how do we enter a highly competitive market? Well, how did you enter your highly competitive market in Vietnam? You know, you expanded from you know, your factories in Bình Dương or something, and you wanted to sell up in Da Nang. I mean, how did you do that? It's kind of weird that everything that the company believed in while they were competing in Vietnam, it's like now they're totally scared to do that overseas. So going that way, it always seems to be this confidence and a confidence factor from the US coming in. You have an advantage because you have the language skill and you probably still have relatives, you know, people. If you think about other companies from the US trying to come in, the problem with the US is we think we know everything, right? And there's so many companies in the US, oh, I don't need any help. And then they go and they get burned, they get the wrong partners, and the business has gotten easier over time. It's become more transparent for foreigners trying to come in, but it's that partnership that the US firm fears coming in. They don't know who to work with, but going the other way, it's that confidence factor going out, right? But if Those are two of the biggest things that I see. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, we don't have time to continue right now. If
Okay.
you have any question, yep. Chị Tina muốn nói gì không chị để kết thúc cái buổi nói chuyện của Judge hôm nay ha?
Dạ.
Thank you chị.
Chắc có lẽ là cái đề tài này nó cũng khá là rộng, cho nên là có lẽ là chúng ta sẽ, nếu tôi có cái contact point cũng như là chị Tina Murphy cũng có contact point của Chuck, thì nếu như tất cả anh em chúng ta, tất cả những chúng ta ở đây mà ai có câu hỏi nào thì chúng ta sẽ gửi sau, và có nghĩa là hy vọng sẽ. Thank you very much for Chuck come here with us. Yeah, we hope that we can see you another time. Yeah, for another topics if possible. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very
You guys
much.
take
Chuck, I
care.
have a question for you. Sorry, one last one. We have a conference that's coming up in Houston. Would your organization, by any chance, would be or have any some way somehow so that you would be there to kind of help, because we have this expo where we bring a lot of people from Vietnam come, for the expo, and then the people here wanted to export as well. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions, and organizations such as yours would be so valuable to have a presence there. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it'd be an amazing opportunity. Just again, it's be the timing. That'd be the only thing that.
Where are you based out of?
Hawaii.
Ah, gotcha. There's nothing like that in Houston that we can go to.
But
I think we should
when is
discuss
that
later,
conference?
Chị Liễu. Discuss with him later and arrange the time maybe.
Yes, we'll do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. We take
Okay,
care.
thank you, speaker.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
we
much.
have to
Thank
see
you.
you in Houston. Huh? Okay.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you.
Catch up later.
Yep, will do, my sister. Bye bye. Aloha.
Okay, bye bye speaker, bye bye Chuck. Okay, giờ chúng ta bắt đầu tiếp tục buổi họp ngày hôm nay. Thì trước khi chúng ta chia nhỏ ra thành những cái breakout room, những nhóm nhỏ, chúng ta có thể chia sẻ cụ thể hơn một số vấn đề mà chúng ta muốn trao đổi. Thì Lâm xin mời anh Vinh Nguyễn sẽ có chia sẻ một số chỉ số kinh tế trong tuần vừa qua, đặc biệt là liên quan đến cái vấn đề về collapse của cái ngân hàng ở Silicon Valley. Xin mời anh Vinh.